In a small, struggling village, Elara, a poor young girl, discovers a secret her late father had hidden away, a forbidden alchemical formula capable of turning sand into gold. A formula that could not only bring unimaginable wealth, but also devastating power. As Elara grapples with the discovery, she finds herself at a crossroads. Should she use the formula to escape poverty and give herself a life of luxury, or does she dare to walk a different path? But this formula comes with a dark twist. Whoever attempts to master it must confront an insatiable hunger for more, a curse that leads to greed, destruction, and loss. As Elara's heart battles with the desire for gold and the fear of the curse, she must decide whether to save herself from the dangers of power or save the one she loves from a fate far worse. What will she choose? The story begins in a humble village where a young girl named Elara lives in poverty with her mother. Her father, an eccentric and reclusive alchemist, passed away when Elara was just a child, leaving behind a house filled with strange and mysterious objects. Elara has always felt the weight of his absence, but never understood the true nature of his work. One evening, while sorting through her father's belongings, Elara stumbles upon a hidden compartment in his old study. Inside, she discovers a journal filled with complex alchemical formulas, one of which stands out above the rest, an incomplete formula for turning sand into gold. Elara is both intrigued and cautious, unaware that this formula holds immense power and danger. As Elara delves deeper into the journal, she uncovers more about the alchemical process and the warnings her father wrote about the formula. He mentions a curse that accompanies the transformation of sand into gold, one that brings insatiable greed to those who attempt it. The thought of wealth and a better life tempts Elara, but she remembers the sacrifices her parents made to keep her away from such dangerous desires. Meanwhile, her childhood friend Rowan, who is secretly in love with her, struggles with his own financial troubles and growing desperation. Elara begins to see that the formula could provide the means to end their suffering, but she knows that the curse could destroy them both. One day, while walking through the village, Elara meets a mysterious stranger, a well-dressed man who seems to know much about alchemy. He hints that he has been watching her and offers to help her complete the formula in exchange for a share of the gold. The stranger's smooth words and apparent charm make the offer seem tempting, but Elara remains wary. She begins to question who he truly is and whether his intentions are pure. Rowan, unaware of the stranger's involvement, urges Elara to think practically about using the formula to escape their poverty. Torn between love and caution, Elara must decide whether to trust the stranger or continue her search for the full formula on her own. As Elara's obsession with the formula deepens, she begins to notice changes in herself. She becomes increasingly withdrawn, focusing all her energy on solving the formula's mysteries. Her relationship with Rowan becomes strained as he tries to draw her attention back to their life together. But Elara is consumed by her desire to succeed. The village also begins to suffer as rumors of strange occurrences spread, people growing more selfish, more ambitious, and more desperate for wealth. Elara's mother, seeing the transformation in her daughter, pleads with Elara to stop her pursuit of the formula, warning her that the curse is real. But Elara cannot stop. The promise of gold has consumed her. Rowan's own struggles continue to mount as his family faces financial ruin. His father's debts threaten to tear his family apart, and the burden weighs heavily on him. He hears whispers of Elara's discovery and becomes both worried and hopeful. He confronts Elara, begging her to stop. Rowan tells her that he would rather stay poor than lose her to the curse of greed. However, Elara, increasingly cold and distant, brushes him off. Convinced that once she turns the sand into gold, everything will change. Rowan decides to take matters into his own hands and secretly seeks out the stranger who had offered help, hoping to find a way to fix things before Elara makes a dangerous mistake. Rowan finds the stranger and, despite his suspicions, agrees to work with him. The stranger, whose name is revealed to be Thaddeus, promises Rowan that with the formula completed, he can lift his family out of debt and restore balance to their lives. Thaddeus, however, has his own agenda, which remains unclear to Rowan as the two men begin to work together. Rowan grows increasingly wary of Thaddeus's influence over him. He feels as though the stranger is manipulating him, but at the same time, the possibility of wealth and success begins to cloud his judgment. As Rowan's internal conflict grows, Elara makes a breakthrough in completing the formula, unknowingly bringing them both closer to a fate they cannot yet foresee. With the formula nearly complete, Elara prepares for her first experiment. She gathers sand from the nearby desert, believing that the transformation is just within her reach. In the dead of night, she uses the final ingredients from her father's journal and begins the alchemical process. The air around her crackles with energy as she chants the incantation from the journal. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light fills the room, and before her eyes, the sand begins to transmute into gold. Elara gasps in awe, but a sense of unease settles over her. As the gold forms, her mind races with the endless possibilities: wealth, power, freedom, but so too does a growing sense of greed. As Elara admires the gold before her, she feels a strange shift within herself. The joy of success is short-lived, replaced by an insatiable hunger for more. She looks at the piles of gold with a ravenous desire, unable to stop herself from wanting even more. The gold seems to call to her, and the more she touches it, the more desperate she becomes. Her thoughts spiral into dark places as she contemplates how much more she could create. Meanwhile, Rowan returns to find Elara consumed by the gold and her own greed. He tries to reason with her, but the Elara he once knew is slipping away. The curse is taking hold, and it seems that neither of them can escape its pull. Rowan, feeling the distance between them widening, confronts Elara with the weight of the consequences of her actions. He reminds her of the warnings in her father's journal, but Elara dismisses him, her eyes fixed greedily on the gold. In her mind, the future is now within her grasp, and she can't bear to think of giving it up. She brushes off Rowan's concerns, claiming that he doesn't understand her struggle. Rowan, desperate, pleads with her to stop before it's too late. But Elara, now fully consumed by the promise of wealth, turns away from him. The tension between them grows, and Elara's mind becomes more clouded with greed, pushing Rowan further out of her life. She is no longer the girl he once loved. She is something darker, driven by the curse of gold. Rowan begins to suspect that Thaddeus may not have been entirely honest with him. The stranger's words seem more manipulative now, and Rowan starts to question why he has been so willing to help. Thaddeus hints that the true power of the formula is not just in creating gold, but in controlling the desires of others. Rowan realizes that Thaddeus has been playing both sides, manipulating him and Elara to fulfill his own mysterious agenda. As he digs deeper into the stranger's past, he uncovers a dangerous secret. Thaddeus had once been an alchemist, driven mad by his own pursuit of gold. Rowan fears that Thaddeus's plan could spell disaster for Elara, and he must find a way to stop him before it's too late. Elara's transformation accelerates as she continues to create gold with reckless abandon. Her once vibrant personality has become overshadowed by an insatiable greed. The more gold she produces, the more she desires. At night, she lies awake, staring at the piles of shimmering treasure, her mind racing with the endless possibilities. Rowan, watching helplessly from a distance, realizes that the girl he loved is slipping away. He remembers the innocence she once had, the dreams they shared, and how far she's fallen. In a desperate attempt to reach her, he confronts Elara one more time, urging her to stop before the curse completely overtakes her. But her eyes, once full of hope, are now cold and distant. She brushes him aside, consumed by the wealth she's created. Elara can no longer see beyond the gold, and Rowan begins to fear that he might lose her forever. Rowan's heart is torn as he watches Elara spiral deeper into the curse of greed. He loves her more than anything, but he can't stand to see her become a shell of her former self. In an attempt to break her free from the curse, he decides to seek help from the village elders. He hopes that they might know of a way to reverse the effects of the alchemical formula. However, when he shares his concerns with them, the elders express doubt, revealing that the curse is ancient and difficult to break. In the meantime, Elara, now entirely focused on her quest for more gold, begins to isolate herself from the village, unwilling to share her newfound wealth. She has become a recluse, and the villagers begin to whisper, afraid of what she might become. Thaddeus, seeing how Elara's greed has taken root, takes advantage of the situation. He appears to her more frequently, offering promises of even greater riches, subtly manipulating her thoughts. He assures her that the power to create unlimited wealth is within her grasp, that the gold is only the beginning. Elara becomes more reliant on Thaddeus, seeing him as a mentor and guide. As her obsession with the formula deepens, she begins to lose touch with everything else. Rowan's attempts to reach her are thwarted by Thaddeus's influence, and Elara's mind becomes clouded. Thaddeus reveals that he knows more about the formula than he's letting on, and that the gold isn't the final step. There's a darker power hidden within the alchemical process. A power that could give Elara even more than she could ever dream of, but at what cost? Thaddeus's cryptic words linger in Elara's mind, and she becomes consumed by the idea of uncovering this hidden power. She begins experimenting further with the formula, pushing the boundaries of alchemy in ways that are dangerous and unpredictable. As she delves deeper, she discovers that the true cost of the gold isn't just the greed it creates, it is the soul itself. Each transmutation of sand into gold requires more than just ingredients. It demands a sacrifice. Elara feels the weight of this truth pressing down on her, but her desire for power overpowers her conscience. The more she creates, the more her soul is slowly being consumed by the process. Meanwhile, Rowan, unable to stop her, becomes desperate. He begins to suspect that Thaddeus knows how to control Lyra's fate, and he realizes that if anyone can save her, it's him. But he is running out of time. Rowan's love for Elara has never wavered, but as he watches her become more enmeshed in her pursuit of gold, he begins to feel as though he is losing her forever. He tries to remind her of the life they once dreamed of together before the formula came into their lives. But Elara, now completely obsessed with her creations, dismisses him. The distance between them becomes unbearable, and Rowan is forced to confront the painful truth. Elara no longer loves him in the way she once did. Her heart has been overtaken by greed, and Rowan fears that the curse may be irreversible. Stricken with grief, he retreats to the village's outskirts, hoping to clear his mind and figure out what he can do next. He realizes that the only way to break the curse may be to destroy the formula and the gold it has created, but he doesn't know how. Rowan decides to take action. He can no longer sit idly by while Elara is consumed by the curse. He sneaks into her hidden study late one night, hoping to destroy the formula before it is too late. But when he enters, he finds Elara standing over the glowing gold, her face pale and cold, her eyes locked onto the shimmering treasure. It's clear to him now that she is lost, unable to see anything beyond the gold. With a heavy heart, Rowan approaches her and pleads with her once more to stop, but Elara's gaze remains fixed on the wealth before her. Desperate, Rowan grabs the journal from her hands, intending to burn it and end the madness. But he reacts violently, pushing him away with a strength he didn't expect. She has become unrecognizable, her greed turning her into something cruel. As he stumbles backward, she warns him that if he destroys the formula, they both will suffer the consequences. Rowan is left with a painful choice: destroy the formula and risk losing her forever, or let her continue down this dark path. As Elara retreats into the shadows of her study, Rowan reflects on her father's journal and the warnings written in it. He remembers how Elara's father had tried to protect her from the dangers of alchemy, how he had warned her of the curse that would come with using the forbidden formula. But now that the formula is complete and the gold is pouring forth, it seems that the curse is more real than ever. Rowan realizes that Elara's father must have known that this day would come. The journal contained not just the secrets of turning sand into gold, but the wisdom of knowing that some knowledge is best left undiscovered. The weight of this realization hits him hard. Elara is not the first to fall victim to the greed of alchemy. He fears that if she doesn't stop, she may become a part of a tragic cycle that has claimed others before her. Rowan's despair turns to action. He knows that in order to save Elara, he must separate her from the gold and the formula. But the pull of greed is too strong. Thaddeus, sensing Rowan's growing determination, begins to manipulate events from the shadows, setting up obstacles that will force Rowan to face the consequences of his actions. Elara, meanwhile, grows more defensive of her newfound wealth, refusing to let anyone take it from her. The tension between the two men builds as they both realize that they are not just fighting for gold. They are fighting for Elara's very soul. Each step Rowan takes to protect her seems to push him further away from her, and each move Thaddeus makes only deepens the divide between them. The struggle for Elara's heart becomes an unseen war, one that will either destroy her or free her from the curse. With the situation becoming increasingly dire, Rowan approaches Thaddeus in a final attempt to reach an understanding. He offers Thaddeus a bargain. If the stranger can help break the curse, Rowan will give him a portion of the gold in return. Thaddeus listens carefully, but his eyes gleam with a dangerous gleam. He reveals that he has no interest in gold, but rather in the power it grants. He offers Rowan a different deal, a pact that will bind Elara to the formula forever, ensuring that she is never free of its influence. Thaddeus promises that he can reverse the curse, but only if Rowan agrees to make the ultimate sacrifice, his own life. Rowan, horrified by the cost of such a deal, refuses to accept Thaddeus's offer. He realizes that Thaddeus's true intentions are not to save Elara, but to control her. Desperate, Rowan must now find another way to destroy the formula and save Elara before it's too late. Rowan returns to Elara, determined to confront her one final time. He tells her of the bargain Thaddeus offered him, of the price of her soul, and of the sacrifices he is willing to make to save her. But her mind clouded by greed, no longer believes in the love they once shared. She mocks his attempts to save her, convinced that the gold is all she needs. In a final, heartbreaking moment, Elara tells Rowan that she no longer cares about the life they once dreamed of together. She has found something far more important: power, wealth, and the promise of endless riches. Rowan, devastated, realizes that he must destroy the formula no matter the cost. But as he reaches for the journal, Elara stops him, her eyes filled with cold determination. The time for love and sacrifice has passed. The only thing that matters now is the gold. Rowan stands frozen, Elara's cold, unfeeling gaze locking with his. She places her hand on the journal, protecting it with the same fervor she once showed him. His heart aches as he faces the reality that Elara, the girl he loved, no longer exists in the same form. Her mind and soul are now consumed by the alchemical curse. Desperately, he tries to remind her of who she was before the gold, but the words fall on deaf ears. Elara only sneers, telling him that he doesn't understand the power she has unlocked. She tells him that she no longer needs him, that she's past the point of caring for anything other than the wealth she's acquired. In a final act of heartbreak, Rowan realizes that the woman he loved is gone. His only hope now lies in destroying the formula. But how? Rowan, now resolved to free Elara from the gold's curse, formulates a desperate plan. He sneaks back into her study, where piles of gold are scattered across the floor. The air is thick with the scent of metal, but his thoughts are focused solely on the formula. As he reaches for the journal, he is confronted by Elara, who stands in the doorway, eyes wide with anger. "You don't understand, Rowan. You could have everything," she says, her voice trembling with greed. "You could be rich beyond your wildest dreams." Rowan looks into her eyes and sees the girl he once loved, buried beneath a layer of insatiable ambition. He begs her one last time to come back to him, to leave the gold behind. But Elara rejects him, her eyes now vacant of the love they once shared. She tells him that he's too weak to understand her power. Rowan stands in the center of the room, a feeling of hopelessness crushing him. He watches as Elara, now fully absorbed in her golden empire, retreats into the shadows. His heart breaks further, but he knows that the only way to save her is to take drastic action. He grabs the journal, intending to burn it, but a part of him hesitates. The weight of the decision presses down on him. Destroy the formula, and there is a chance Elara might remember who she was, or let her continue on this path, and risk losing her forever. In a moment of clarity, he knows what must be done. With trembling hands, Rowan sets fire to the journal. Flames consume the pages, and as they do, a strange quiet fills the room. But the quiet is not comforting there, is no relief. Instead, it feels like a weighty finality. The fire slowly burns out, and as the last of the journal turns to ash, the room becomes eerily silent. Rowan stands motionless, his heart torn in two. Elara stands still, in the corner, her face a mask of disbelief. She watches the ashes fall to the floor, a cold realization dawning on her. For the first time, the gold in her hands begins to lose its luster. Her eyes flicker, a shadow of the girl she once was resurfacing. "Why?" she whispers, her voice trembling. Rowan's heart leaps, but his words are choked by the grief that floods him. "Elara, you've been consumed by the curse. I had to stop you." He steps forward, hoping that the woman he once loved is still there beneath the surface. But Elara recoils, her face twisting in confusion and anger. "You ruined everything," she hisses. "The gold was mine." And just like that, the distance between them grows wider. Elara, now faced with the emptiness left by her own ambition, stands motionless before the remnants of her father's formula. Rowan watches, helpless, as she seems to crumble under the weight of her own decisions. She stares at the ashes in disbelief. The gold she had so desperately clung to no longer feels fulfilling. It's a hollow victory, one that has left her empty. Rowan, despite the pain he feels, steps forward. He tells her that they can rebuild their lives together, away from the gold, away from the curse. He knows that she's not entirely gone, that the girl he loved is still inside her, fighting to come back. But Elara's mind is clouded by the overwhelming greed that's taken root in her soul. She turns away from him once more, retreating into the darkness. "It's too late," she whispers, and Rowan feels the truth of her words pierce him like a knife. Elara, consumed by rage and heartbreak, decides to take matters into her own hands. She sneaks away in the dead of night, determined to regain the formula and gold that she believes is her birthright. Rowan, waking to find her gone, is struck by the realization that he may have lost her forever. He searches the village, asking for any sign of her whereabouts, but no one has seen her. As the days pass, Rowan becomes desperate, fearing the worst. He knows that Elara is treading a dark path, one that will lead her further away from him. In his heart, he knows he must follow her, even if it means facing the consequences of his own actions. He can no longer sit by and watch her destroy herself. Rowan sets out to find Elara, hoping against hope that he can still save her from the curse, but fearing that he may be too late. Rowan's search for Elara takes him deep into the wilderness, far from the safety of the village. He tracks her through the forests, across harsh terrain, following the faintest clues that suggest she's not too far ahead. But the further he goes, the more he begins to fear that he's chasing a ghost. Every shadow feels like a trap. Every whisper in the wind seems to be a trick of his mind. Elara is slipping away from him, consumed by the greed that has taken over her. Rowan begins to doubt whether he can save her at all. In his darkest moments, he wonders if she will ever return to him, or if she has crossed an irreversible line. The journey becomes a desperate quest, not just to find Elara, but to remind her of the love they shared before the gold and the curse. Time is running out. As Rowan ventures deeper into the wild, he is ambushed by none other than Thaddeus, the man who had been manipulating Elara's obsession with gold all along. Thaddeus reveals that he has been watching Elara's every move, and he warns Rowan that the girl he once loved is lost forever. "You're too late," Thaddeus sneers. "She's mine now." Rowan demands to know what Thaddeus has done to Elara, but the stranger only laughs. He reveals that Elara, now completely consumed by greed, has made a pact with him, one that binds her to the formula forever. Thaddeus promises to give her the power she desires, but in return, she will lose all that remains of her humanity. Elara's soul is now tied to the curse, and there's no going back. Rowan is left speechless, broken by the realization that the woman he once loved is now completely under Thaddeus's control. Rowan, heart heavy with despair, realizes that he must make a choice. He could abandon his search, leaving Elara to her fate, or he could try to confront Thaddeus and free her, risking everything in the process. Thaddeus's power over Elara is undeniable, but Rowan knows that, deep within her, there's a flicker of the woman he once loved. Desperation leads him to a bold plan. He will confront Thaddeus head-on and challenge him for Elara's soul. But the stakes are high, and Rowan knows that, if he loses, he may lose Elara forever. Not just to the curse, but to Thaddeus's twisted influence. With no other options, Rowan prepares for the most dangerous gamble of his life, as he sets his course towards the heart of Thaddeus's dark domain. He holds on to a sliver of hope, the belief that love can still break the chains of greed and save Elara from the darkness. Rowan reaches the heart of Thaddeus's lair, a desolate, eerie castle that seems to pulse with dark energy. Inside, Elara sits at a table surrounded by mounds of gold, her eyes hollow with the weight of her greed. Thaddeus stands beside her, watching as Rowan enters, his expression cold and cruel. Rowan faces them both, his voice shaking but firm. He calls out to Elara, pleading with her to remember the love they shared, to fight the curse that has overtaken her. But Elara only laughs, her voice cold and distant. "You should have let me be," she says, her eyes devoid of warmth. Thaddeus steps forward, mocking Rowan's efforts. He tells Rowan that Elara is beyond saving, that her soul is lost. But Rowan doesn't give up. He challenges Thaddeus to a final duel, betting his own life against Elara's soul. The battle begins. The room is filled with a dark, oppressive energy as Rowan faces off against Thaddeus. Magic crackles in the air, the very walls seeming to tremble with the force of their battle. Rowan, though untrained in magic, fights with all his heart, desperate to save Elara from the curse. Thaddeus is a powerful adversary, using the alchemical knowledge he has gained to manipulate the elements, but Rowan refuses to give in. His love for Elara drives him, and each blow he strikes carries the weight of his determination. The fight seems endless, but Rowan's resolve is unyielding. Thaddeus, seeing the strength of Rowan's heart, begins to falter. Just as it seems, Rowan might be overpowered. He strikes a final blow, shattering Thaddeus's hold on the room. The castle trembles, and Thaddeus is consumed by his own dark magic, disappearing in a flash of light. But the victory comes at a cost. With Thaddeus gone, the oppressive energy lifts, and Rowan rushes to Elara's side. She lies unconscious on the cold stone floor, surrounded by gold. Her breathing is shallow, her face pale. Rowan gathers her in his arms, calling her name softly. For a long moment, there is no response, and Rowan fears he's lost her forever. But then, with a ragged gasp, Elara's eyes flutter open. She looks around, disoriented, and then her gaze meets Rowan's. for the first time in what feels like an eternity. Her eyes are filled with emotion, love, confusion, and fear. She doesn't speak at first, but slowly, she begins to understand the gravity of what has happened. Her soul, once lost to the curse of greed, is now free. But Elara knows that her journey to redemption is just beginning. Elara and Rowan leave the castle, their journey together far from over. They return to the village, where Elara begins the long process of healing. Though the curse has been lifted, the emotional scars left by her obsession with gold run deep. She is haunted by the choices she made, by the life she almost lost. Rowan is there to support her, but he knows that true healing will take time. The village welcomes them back, but there are whispers of Elara's past, and some still view her with suspicion. Despite this, Elara is determined to make amends, to rebuild the life she once had with Rowan. Together, they begin to heal the wounds of their past, and though the road ahead is uncertain, Elara knows that love is the key to breaking free from the chains of greed. As Elara begins to regain her sense of self, she and Rowan grow closer once again. The love that once seemed lost is rekindled, though both know that they can never return to who they were before. The shadow of the curse still lingers, but Elara is no longer defined by it. She works to rebuild the relationships she had damaged, earning back the trust of the village. Rowan stands by her, his love unwavering despite everything they've been through. They rebuild their home together, not with gold, but with hope, compassion, and shared dreams. Their love is tested, but through each trial, they grow stronger. And as they look to the future, they know that no amount of gold can ever replace the value of the love they've rediscovered. Elara's redemption isn't easy, though she's no longer consumed by gold. The past lingers in her mind. She still feels the weight of the curse's influence, like a dark shadow that follows her everywhere. She knows that she cannot undo the damage she has caused, but she is determined to move forward. One day, an old villager approaches her, telling her of a relic buried deep in the forest, a relic said to grant absolution for those who seek it. Elara, unsure whether she believes in such things, sets out to find it, hoping that it might help her find peace. Rowan, ever supportive, agrees to accompany her. As they journey into the forest, Elara begins to realize that the path to redemption is not a destination. It's a journey that requires patience, humility, and the willingness to forgive oneself. After days of searching, Elara and Rowan come across the relic hidden in a forgotten cave deep within the forest. The relic, a stone carved with intricate symbols, is said to have the power to absolve those who seek forgiveness for their past sins. Elara touches it hesitantly, unsure of what to expect. As her fingers brush the stone, a wave of peace washes over her. She feels the weight of her past lifting, the burden of greed slipping away. For the first time in a long while, she feels truly free. Rowan watches in awe, knowing that this moment marks a turning point for both of them. Elara is no longer the woman consumed by gold, but a woman who has found redemption. Together, they leave the cave, knowing that their future is now filled with endless possibilities, and the darkness of the past can no longer hold them back. With the relic's blessing, Elara and Rowan return to the village, where they begin. A new Elara dedicates herself to helping the villagers, using her knowledge of alchemy, not for wealth, but for healing and growth. She helps cultivate crops, create medicines, and improve the lives of those around her. Slowly, the village begins to heal, just as Elara does. Her work helps restore her reputation, and the villagers who once feared her begin to trust her again. Rowan stands beside her, proud of the woman she has become. The couple begins to dream of a future, free from the shadows of the past. They build a family and create a life rooted in love and kindness, far removed from the pursuit of gold. Years pass, and Elara's life becomes one of peace and contentment. She and Rowan raise children, and their home becomes a sanctuary of love. But the scars of her past are never far from her mind. One day, a stranger comes to the village with rumors of a new discovery, another formula, another path to wealth. Elara's heart races at the thought, but she quickly reminds herself of what she's learned. She refuses to be drawn back into the allure of gold. Instead, she uses her knowledge of alchemy to help the village in other ways, ensuring that the past remains firmly behind her. This new test of her resolve proves that she has truly learned to live without the weight of greed. As time goes on, Elara continues to grow and flourish, no longer defined by the gold she once sought. However, the temptation to pursue alchemical knowledge remains, and one day, she is presented with a new challenge and opportunity to unlock an even more powerful formula that could grant her the wealth she once dreamed of. Rowan, seeing the familiar glint of ambition in her eyes, is filled with fear. But Elara, after a moment of contemplation, turns away from the formula, knowing that the price is too great. She chooses love and family over wealth and power, finally breaking free from the cycle that once threatened to consume her. Elara and Rowan, now older and wiser, stand together looking out over the village they've helped to build. They've faced the darkest aspects of themselves, confronted greed, and chosen love and peace instead. They have built a life that's rich in memories, not in gold. As the sun sets on the horizon, Elara turns to Rowan and smiles. "We've come a long way," she says softly. Rowan nods, taking her hand. "And we'll keep moving forward," he replies. The two of them stand together, knowing that they've overcome their greatest challenge, the temptation of greed, and have emerged stronger, their love now a beacon of light. Their journey has come to an end, but their story is just beginning. Years have passed since Elara and Rowan made their choice to live a life free from the curse of greed. Their family has grown, and the village is thriving. But the past, as it often does, lingers in unexpected ways. One evening, while walking through the woods, Elara encounters a familiar face, one from her past. It's a fellow alchemist, a woman she once knew briefly when she was studying alchemy in secret, long before the formula was ever discovered. The woman speaks of the ancient secrets Elara once sought, offering her an opportunity to revisit the alchemical studies she had. Abandoned Elara is filled with a deep, unsettling temptation. The past calls to her, and she feels a twinge of her old curiosity. But she knows that this moment, this crossroads, is different. She turns her back on the offer, understanding now that her happiness lies in the present, not the pursuit of dangerous knowledge. Despite her decision to leave the past behind, the temptation to learn more about alchemy gnaws at Elara. One day, while working in the village, she encounters a group of travelers carrying a strange artifact, an ancient alchemical book that promises the discovery of new, untapped powers. The book's cover gleams with mysterious symbols, and something about it feels strangely familiar. Elara is drawn to it like a magnet, and though she tries to resist, the allure of forbidden knowledge resurfaces as she holds the book. Memories of the gold, the formula, and the curse flood her mind. She can feel the pull of its power. Rowan, sensing her internal struggle, confronts her. "We've come too far to turn back, Elara. We've chosen this life. We've chosen each other." With his words grounding her, Elara reluctantly hands the book back to the travelers, choosing once again to live free of the past. Despite her decision to resist the temptation of alchemy, Elara begins to notice subtle changes within herself. Her once strong connection to the alchemical arts lingers in her soul, and at times she feels restless, disconnected from the simpler life she now leads. One night, unable to sleep, she walks to the edge of the village, staring into the vast, dark forest. In the stillness, she hears a voice calling her name, a voice she hasn't heard in years. It's her father, or at least the echo of him, speaking to her from the depths of her memory. "You are always meant for greater things, my daughter. The knowledge is still inside you." The words stir something deep within her, a yearning she's tried to suppress. Elara realizes that the alchemical knowledge, the secret that once defined her life, is an inseparable part of who she is. Yet, she refuses to let it control her. It's time to embrace her true self, not the one who seeks power. Rowan, ever supportive, begins to notice that Elara's mood has changed. There is a distance in her eyes that wasn't there before. He knows that the battle within her is far from over and that her past will always be a part of her. One evening, as they sit together under the stars, Rowan gently asks her, "Is there something you're not telling me? I can see it in your eyes. You're still searching for something." Elara is silent for a long time, staring into the fire. Finally, she admits, "I feel like I'm not fully myself anymore. The alchemy, the gold, it was never just about power. It was about finding my place in the world." Rowan listens carefully, understanding her pain. "You've found your place here, with me, with our family. But if you need to explore that side of yourself, we'll face it together." His words provide her with a sense of peace, but she knows the journey ahead is far from simple. After much contemplation, Elara realizes that the key to her peace lies in learning more about the origins of alchemy, not for wealth or power, but for understanding. She begins reading ancient texts, not seeking to unlock forbidden formulas, but rather to uncover the true nature of alchemical knowledge. Elara starts visiting old libraries, seeking out scholars who might help her understand the balance between knowledge and wisdom. With each text, she feels more at ease with her past and more aware of how much she still has to learn. Her path is now one of enlightenment rather than greed. She begins to teach the village children about the wonders of science and nature, using alchemy as a tool for good rather than a weapon. In this way, Elara finds herself again not in the gold, but in the joy of sharing knowledge with others. One day, while in the village garden, Elara notices a small plant growing in the soil. It is an unfamiliar species, unlike anything she has ever seen. Curious, she carefully digs around the roots and discovers an ancient symbol carved into the earth beneath the plant. It is a symbol of transmutation of change. Elara's mind races. Could this be a clue to unlocking something deeper in her studies of alchemy? The plant, with its strange resilience, seems to represent the transformation she herself has gone through. She carefully nurtures the plant, and it thrives. As the plant grows, so does Elara's understanding of the delicate balance of nature, alchemy, and the interconnectedness of life. It serves as a reminder that the true transmutation she seeks is not of metals into gold, but of her own soul, which has blossomed into something far more valuable than she ever could have imagined. Although Rowan has supported Elara through every step of her journey, he begins to feel the weight of his own unresolved feelings. He has watched Elara transform, overcome the curse, and now blossom into someone who is fully at peace with herself. But Rowan is haunted by a question that has lingered in his heart for years. Has he truly forgiven himself for his role in Elara's descent into greed? He starts to wonder if, by trying to save her, he neglected his own healing process. His guilt grows, and he withdraws from Elara, quietly searching for his own answers. One night, as Elara notices the growing distance between them, she confronts him. "Rowan, what's wrong? You've been distant." He admits his feelings of guilt and his fear that he might never truly atone for the mistakes he made in their past. Elara, understanding his pain, reassures him. "We've both done things we regret, but we've also learned, grown, and changed. We're in this together, always." With the support of Elara, Rowan begins the difficult task of facing his own guilt. He seeks out the village elder, an ancient woman who has seen many lives and stories unfold. She listens to his confessions and then, with gentle wisdom, tells him that the burden of guilt is often heavier than the weight of the mistake itself. Forgiveness, she says, is not just about absolution, but about understanding, accepting, and changing. You have already done that. Now, you must forgive yourself. The elder's words resonate deeply with Rowan, and he begins to understand that the true path to peace lies in self-forgiveness. He returns to Elara, finally free from the guilt that has held him captive for so long. Together, they move forward, not as two broken people, but as two whole individuals who have chosen to heal and build a future together. Elara and Rowan, now both at peace with their pasts, begin to work together to help the village flourish. Elara's teachings on the balance of nature and alchemy inspire many, and the villagers begin to embrace the wisdom she shares. They build sustainable gardens, use alchemical techniques to heal the sick, and create a thriving, peaceful community. The lessons learned from the past, the dangers of greed, the power of love, and the importance of balance become the foundation for the village's success. Rowan, too, takes on a leadership role, helping to guide the village into a new era. As their community transforms, so does Elara's understanding of her purpose. She realizes that she is not meant to be an alchemist of gold, but an alchemist of the heart, transmuting the world around her through knowledge, compassion, and love. One day, as Elara is working in her garden, a stranger arrives in the village, carrying an old, familiar object, her father's alchemical journal. The stranger claims that he has found it in an ancient ruin far beyond the village, and he believes it belongs to her. Elara takes the journal in her hands, feeling a rush of memories flood her mind. She knows that the knowledge contained within it is powerful, but she also knows that it is no longer the key to her happiness. She looks at the formula, the one that once promised to turn sand into gold, and understands that its true lesson is not in the creation of wealth, but in the creation of wisdom. With a final, decisive breath, Elara places the journal in a chest, locking it away. She has learned that the greatest treasure is not found in gold, but in the lessons we learn along the way. Years later, as Elara and Rowan sit on their porch, watching the sun set over the peaceful village, Elara reflects on how far they have come. The once tumultuous journey filled with greed, loss, and heartache has transformed into one of growth, understanding, and peace. The village, once a place of whispers and fear, is now a beacon of hope. Elara's work with the villagers has created a flourishing community where knowledge and love are the true treasures. As Rowan reaches for her hand, Elara feels a deep sense of gratitude. She has found her place in the world, not as the alchemist's daughter chasing after gold, but as a woman who has embraced her true power, the power of love, healing, and transformation. Together, they look ahead to the future, knowing that no matter what challenges may come, they will face them together. Their bond, unbreakable. As Elara and Rowan's children grow, they pass on the wisdom and lessons they've learned. Their children, inspired by their parents' transformation, grow up with a deep respect for the balance of nature and the importance of community. Elara teaches them the art of alchemy, not for personal gain, but to help others. Rowan guides them in understanding the value of integrity, compassion, and the importance of standing up for what is right. Together, they form a family built on the values of love, responsibility, and respect for the world around them. Elara watches with pride as the next generation begins to carry the torch, understanding that her own journey was not just about her, but about creating a legacy of wisdom for those who come after. Years have passed, and Elara's life has been filled with joy, peace, and fulfillment. But one day, a figure from her past appears at the edge of the village. It is a face she never thought she would see again, her former mentor, the alchemist, who had first introduced her to the dangerous pursuit of gold. The mentor, now older and weathered by time, has come to seek forgiveness. "I see now that I led you down the wrong path," the mentor says, voice heavy with regret. Elara listens quietly, feeling a mixture of emotions rise within her. She realizes that this moment is not about vengeance, but about healing for both of them. With a gentle smile, Elara forgives the mentor, knowing that their shared past does not define them. The two women embrace, understanding that true healing can only come when we let go of the past and move forward with an open heart. As Elara continues to teach and guide the village, she finds herself once again faced with the allure of alchemical knowledge. A new discovery, an ancient text that promises the ability to transmute not just metals, but the very fabric of time itself, arrives at her doorstep. Elara knows that this power could change the world, but she also knows the dangers that come with it. The temptation to use this knowledge is strong, but Elara has learned over the years that true power lies not in manipulation, but in understanding and balance. She chooses not to pursue this new discovery, instead, using her alchemical skills to heal and help those in need. The village continues to flourish, and Elara realizes that her greatest gift is not the ability to change the world with magic, but the ability to change herself, and by doing so, transform the lives of those around her. Elara stands at the riverbank, watching the water flow past. The river reminds her of the passage of time, how everything changes, yet remains constant. Her life, once consumed by the pursuit of power and wealth, has transformed into one of service and love. She feels a deep sense of peace as she reflects on all that has come before and all that is yet to come. Rowan stands beside her, his hand in hers. Together, they have navigated the river of time, and though the currents were strong, they always managed to find their way back to each other. "We've come full circle," Elara says softly. Rowan nods, knowing that their journey is far from over, "and will keep moving forward," he replies. The two of them stand in silence, watching the river flow, knowing that no matter what the future holds, they will face it together as the years pass. Elara and Rowan's legacy continues to grow. The village, once a small, fearful place, is now a thriving hub of knowledge, healing, and community. Their children, inspired by their parents' teachings, spread the lessons of balance and love to other villages, creating a network of communities that embrace the values Elara and Rowan have instilled. The once quiet village becomes a beacon of hope for all who seek wisdom, compassion, and peace. Elara realizes that the true legacy she leaves behind is not the gold she once sought, but the love and wisdom she has shared with the world. In the end, she has found the richest treasure of all, a life filled with meaning, purpose, and love. One quiet morning, a wandering seer arrives in the village. Sensing the powerful energy that surrounds Elara, the seer, an old woman draped in colorful shawls, approaches Elara with a knowing smile. "You have walked through fire and emerged reborn," she says, gazing deeply into Elara's eyes. "But your journey is not yet complete." The seer offers Elara a glimpse into the future, a vision of a new challenge that awaits her, challenge that will test the strength of her resolve and her ability to maintain balance. Elara is skeptical but intrigued. The vision reveals a world on the brink of chaos, with the knowledge of alchemy and power once again sought by those who would use it for greed and destruction. The seer warns her that the past is never truly gone, and old dangers may resurface. Elara thanks the seer, though uncertainty lingers in her heart. She knows that no matter the future, she must be ready. Despite her peace, Elara cannot shake the feeling that something is amiss. Days after the seer's visit, a letter arrives from a distant kingdom, one she has not heard from in years. The letter is from an old colleague, an alchemist, who once shared Elara's obsession with the formula. The letter calls her back to the kingdom, offering a rare opportunity to study with the world's greatest alchemists. At first Elara hesitates. She has found contentment in the life she has built, but something about the letter beckons her. After discussing it with Rowan, she decides to travel, determined to face whatever new challenges arise. Rowan, ever supportive, agrees to accompany her, knowing that their bond is strong enough to weather any storm. Together, they leave the village once more, venturing into a world that seems both familiar and foreign. A world where old secrets and new dangers await. Elara and Rowan arrive at the kingdom, a place of grand libraries, towering citadels, and hidden secrets. The kingdom is filled with scholars and alchemists, all eager to exchange knowledge. Yet, something feels off. The atmosphere is heavy with a sense of unease, as if the power of the place weighs too heavily on its people. As they settle into the castle, Elara is introduced to the leading alchemists, men and women whose ambition to control the world's alchemical secrets rivals her own in her youth. Among them is the very man who once taught Elara the art of transmutation, now twisted by years of power and greed. He warns her of the dangers of pursuing alchemy without boundaries, but Elara feels the old temptation stirring within her. She begins to question whether she has truly escaped the pull of the formula, or if it is simply waiting for her to stumble once again in the heart of the kingdom. Elara discovers a hidden chamber beneath the Castellan alchemical laboratory filled with the remains of countless failed experiments. At its center lies a gleaming stone, the very same one that once powered the formula that could turn sand into gold. The temptation is overwhelming. Elara can feel the familiar pull, the lure of power and knowledge that had once consumed her. But as she stands before the stone, memories of her past flood her mind, her father's voice, Rowan's unwavering support, the peaceful life they built together. She realizes that her true strength lies not in the ability to change the world with gold, but in her ability to change herself. With a deep breath, Elara walks away from the stone, knowing that she has broken free from the cycle of greed forever. Her final choice is to leave the kingdom, choosing love, balance, and peace over power. As she and Rowan leave the kingdom, Elara feels a sense of freedom she has never known, knowing that her journey has finally reached its end.